Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Court. I am Liv Moods, and in just a moment, joined by Brandon Cristal. And this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome in, everybody, to another Gorilla Sports Off Court. I'm Liv Moods. That is Brandon Cristal, and we are here to talk all things NBA playoffs. There is a lot to discuss. We know the matchup is set. Nuggets versus the Clippers. The Nuggets with some home court advantage in this one. We know in years past, home court advantage has been a valuable X factor for the Denver Nuggets, but unfortunately last season that all came crashing down when they faced the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves did not have a problem beating them anywhere. Home, away, it didn't really matter. So hopefully we get a version of the Denver Nuggets back where they are defending home court, protecting their home court, and getting some big wins at home, especially to start this series, because we know that against the Clippers, it's not going to be easy. And actually, it hasn't really been easy for this Nuggets team all season long. We have watched the Denver Nuggets struggle early, especially earlier in the season. We watched them struggle against the Clippers, all while not having a healthy Kawhi Leonard. And I understand the Nuggets dealt with their own injuries as well, but we know Kawhi Leonard not just being an X factor, the most simply put way. He's very, very valuable, and he's playing at a very high level right now. I'm getting flashbacks to his prime. Not to say he wasn't still in his prime, but he's been injured. We haven't seen him play a whole lot. So Kawhi is playing at a very high level right now. You throw him back into the mix, this Clippers team looks exceptionally different. And we know that without Kawhi Leonard, this Nuggets defense struggled to slow down this Clippers offense. You had Norman Powell playing out of this world, BK. And the Clippers just seemed to be a team that really gave the Nuggets a hard time. And I would imagine an even harder time now that you've got a healthy Kawhi Leonard. How do you feel as we get one day closer to this series unfolding?
And I just came from, it's been a busy morning between
Yep.
being in Boulder for Coach Prime, then talking to you and Nate on our football show,
Yep.
as well as then talking to George Payton and Sean Payton on their Zoom, and then talking to David Adelman because I did those two things from Ball Arena.
Yeah.
David Adelman was asked for the second day in a row. I asked him yesterday about Kawhi. He talked about him again today, and was asked about kind of how well he played at the end of his run with the Spurs, and then winning that championship with Toronto. And he said, this is as close as he's been. Doesn't mean he'll stay that way, because I believe the last 4 seasons he's ended it in street clothes during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so he's healthy now. They've won, I think, 15 of 18. They haven't lost in the month of April.
It just shows the magnitude of Kawhi Leonard.
Well, and he's a true two-way player,
Yep.
as much a two-way player as there has been probably in the modern NBA
Yep.
since maybe Kobe, and Kobe was still a more offensive-minded player.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have a guy that is as big and strong and versatile as he is, I don't know if you can really guard 1 to 5 if Joker is your 5.
Right.
But if other guys are playing 5, if Zeke Naji's in at your 5, DJ, still a lot bigger than him. But if Zeke's in there, if Latko for some reason was in as your 5, or even Saric, who was his old teammate, he can, and I'm not even sure how well he can guard point guards anymore. I'm just saying that a healthy Kawhi Leonard
It's terrifying.
is terrifying. That's a great way to describe it.
It's terrifying.
And the Nuggets are aware of that, because they've played him 5 times, and all 5 times you didn't have Kawhi in those 3 wins and 2 losses for the Nuggets.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about X factors and we talk about like the value of what Kawhi Leonard brings to the Clippers, we also can't forget to mention the value that a healthy Jamal Murray brings to this Nuggets team, especially when it comes to the playoffs. We know that Jamal Murray, for whatever reason, is just elevated on a whole nother level. Like, you almost rarely see what you see in the playoffs. What Jamal Murray is capable in the playoffs feels few and far between in the regular season. And that's not me dogging on him whatsoever. It's just, it does feel like once the playoffs are there, he just gets a different swagger and confidence about him, and he plays at a very different level, a much higher level. So while we acknowledge Kawhi Leonard being the X factor for the Clippers, we can't ignore that Jamal Murray is also an X factor for this Nuggets team. Now, The one reservation you have with that is that Jamal has not been entirely healthy this season. He's been battling injuries off and on. And we know that he has had that in the past as well. He's been injury prone. But when he is in full health, what you get from Jamal Murray in the playoffs is pretty incredible. He's very clutch. And you're starting to see post Coach Malone. So in this
Post Malone?
Post Malone, yeah. In this David Adelman era, you are seeing a little bit more teamwork by this Nuggets team and I do think the reason we're seeing such better basketball out of them is it doesn't all rely on one guy, whether that be Jokic, and MPJ can make a mistake. And it just feels like they've got much more of a team-minded mindset as they've been playing these last few games without Coach Malone. And so that's what you hope for. You hope for in this series against the Clippers that you get a locked-in Jamal Murray, a healthy Jamal Murray, but it's also not all on Jamal Murray. You're still getting production from MPJ, Aaron Gordon, CB in transition, and Nikola Jokic. What's been beautiful over the last few games is watching Nikola Jokic not have to do everything and be everywhere. While that system works for the most part, and it's a pretty surefire system to have Jokic with the ball in his hands at any given moment, it's been refreshing, BK, to see some of the other guys step up to the plate and do their job.
Yeah, and that's something that David Adelman touched on that they really emphasized in the Sacramento game and kind of going forward is just to reduce the usage rate for Nikola a little bit. Don't run every single thing through him. And David Adelman talked about that a lot today, saying that defenses are essentially making it 3-on-1, putting three guys on him in various forms. Obviously, they're adjusting a little bit with how they're doing it. But just to take a little bit off of his plate, it forces everybody else to be even more involved. But back to what you were just saying, that was the thing that I asked him right at the very end of his press conference today, because he had talked yesterday about the connectivity. And if you've watched those three games, specifically that Memphis game and how they were able to play defense down the stretch when they held the Grizz on the last 6.5 minutes to just
one point,
no field goals, was awesome. But how much more vocal they were with each other. And so I asked him about that connectivity. Is so reliant on communication. And he, like any coach, specifically Michael Malone, can harp on, hey, we have to talk, we have to communicate, and that helps. But it obviously had stopped working, and it wasn't getting through from Michael Malone, that message. And so I said, it's obvious, it looks better from where we are. I'm sure you're seeing that. I'm paraphrasing my own question now, but how do you continue to drive home that point? Or are you just comfortable knowing that they're going to do that? And he said that it has continued to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And he cited a couple examples today in practice. He's like, we ran a scout team and it wasn't the best, the best stretch of practice for us. He's like, but that's a good thing. And you had guys telling other guys, hey, you got to get to that spot faster. So it is something they're going to continue to harp on, but you have to, I guess, do it in a positive manner. And sometimes that is, again, about the messenger, not the message.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying anything that Michael Malone wasn't saying in terms of we need to be better on defense because of this, and this. That's going to be the exact same message, whether it's David Adelman or a new coach next year, assuming it's not Mike D'Antoni, but it's a coach that actually wants to include defense. So I think that's encouraging, because the best teams are those players, and Michael Malone did talk about that you're playing for the guy next to you as much as you're playing for yourself.
Yeah. And you know what? I do not find it to be a coincidence at all whatsoever. You just mentioned, I just heard you talk about the fact that one of the things I think we saw as fans, and also that Coach Malone talked about, is we've got to communicate, right? That was something that we would even sit here and say, what are the two most valuable things when it comes to defense? Effort and communication. And it felt like the communication part was always lacking. What I find interesting, though, about that is I'm sure Coach Malone had a lot of frustrations that were bubbling over about the lack of communication. But one of the very first things that was said by, I believe, was it Jamal or AG? One of the very first things said in one of those first games under Adelman was, we're finally being heard. You can't have communication without also listening. And so I think that while we were all very frustrated by the lack of communication, whether it be in their defensive schemes or just in general, it felt like there was a large disconnect there. And while Coach Malone himself was probably very frustrated by a lack of communication between he and his team and within the team, he maybe wasn't understanding or realizing they don't feel heard. They don't feel like you're listening to them. So communication is never going to work if you're not listening as well. So I do think that's been what's been the most refreshing with Adelman as the head coach right now is just these players are saying it. They feel heard. They feel listened to. And I think respect does go both ways. And that's super important to have when you're trying to communicate with these guys that do have egos and can be hot-headed and are very competitive and all maybe want the ball in their hands at any given moment. You have to be able to not only communicate, but also to listen to feedback. And I think that's maybe where there was a disconnect with Coach Malone. All that to say, you've got Jamal Murray back, you think, you hope, for this entire series. And we know that he is going to be the X factor for the Denver Nuggets. We actually have some sound from Jamal Murray yesterday. BK, do you want to give us a quick feel on what we're about to listen to, and then we'll play it?
Well, and so in typical Jamal fashion, we're only giving you part of it. He talked for about 6.5, 7 minutes. You can see the whole thing on our social channels. You can see it on our YouTube. He was kind of short with his first couple lines. Like, yeah, we'll see. We know
which he normally is.
He can be like that a lot. The times he's the best sometimes is when he plays really well, but they lose, or it's a laughable loss like we saw in Game 6 in Minnesota. He was great post-game in that setting, but this time around, he was just, you could tell he wasn't really that into it, and then some of the questions either were asked in a different way or just struck a different chord, he started to open up a little bit. And so, you know, here's kind of the middle to latter part of his media availability yesterday, talking about the matchup with the Clippers and now working under David Adelman and all the things they need to do to go out and compete for a championship.
Does it give you an opportunity to feel like the hunters again rather than the hunted?
No, we're just worrying about ourselves, man. Just trying to get the game, get to game one and win the game. Not really with all the narrative stuff you guys got going on. I just have a lot of belief in the group. I'm ready to go out there and hoop and show the world what we can do.
How much does the extra time off help you or anybody else who's dealing with nagging stuff or little bumps and bruises?
Helps everybody. Anytime you get time off and get a chance to recover your body, you know, setting yourself up for a healthy game one. So that's pleasure of winning the last 3 games to get the home court advantage and have those kind of advantage days going into the playoffs.
How much does Aaron McGordy's versatility help you guys when you're getting into matchups? His ability to guard this kind of one and even take the ball up sometimes?
Yeah, 100%. I think just his versatility. You know, he can shoot it. He can play 2 ways, rebound. You can really put him anywhere. He really do anything on the court. So he's a matchup problem in the post. So I think all around, you know, he can be a threat, and yeah, you know, I think over the course of the season he's just got better and better, and you know, just watch him shoot right now, and can't wait to see those threes go up in the game.
Jamal, in your opinion, what is the biggest difference from regular season to a playoff?
The intensity. You know, I think the refs might let some calls go and stuff like that, kind of more competitive and stuff like that. Maybe the pace might be higher, the pressure or the intensity behind each possession is a little bit higher and stuff like that. So just got to value the ball and stuff like that and know that it only comes down to one possession. So we want to have a good lead going into the fourth and stuff like that. We want to always keep it close, you know what I'm saying? So good starts are important for us and valuing the ball.
Individual. Clippers have the second-ranked defense. Just what stands out in the prep about them on that side of the ball?
They're handsy. The game for a lot of steals. They got a lot of guys that go get the steals. I'll say that's probably the biggest thing. They probably do that better than anybody else in the league. Even if they're not number one, it sure feels like it. You know, just because everybody's doing it and they make you kind of overthink passes. You know, hit your arms on passes, which you know they're not going to call foul every time, right? So, just like I said before, value the ball. Got to be strong with it and not telegraph stuff like that. So. I think we're going to have some deception plays, you know, some things where we can manipulate that and have them gambling more than they want to.
Individually or collectively, is there anything you want to prove in this postseason?
I just want to win a championship. What do you think I should prove?
I asked you.
There you go.
Well, the playoffs, obviously, you've excelled in a number of postseasons. So do you feel the excitement coming on? Like, what is
100%. Everybody. It's basketball. It's the most exciting time of sports. It's when the fans get to come watch and they want to see the best players put on a show. And so every playoffs I try to do that. And yeah, just can't wait to get it going because, you know, like I said, every basketball player waits for this moment to go out there and compete at the highest level against the best players in the world. And we're here now, so we want to make the most of it.
Jamal, what have you seen from Jamal Murray's ability to kind of step in that second
Just him getting more comfortable. I don't think you've seen everything yet, so I don't want to speak like this is the final product. He's still getting better. He's still getting used to playing with the MVP. You know what I'm saying? Playing with myself out there. Russ, there's a lot of guys, he hasn't played a whole ton of minutes with, but from what he does show you, he can shoot it. He's controlled. He doesn't turn over. He's poised. He's really all the above in that aspect. So, like I said, you haven't seen the final product. He's only going to get better from here.
Jamal, you're probably going to be asked to guard Norm a lot in this series. Just what kinds of challenges does he present off the ball from James?
I think Norm is super underrated. I've been like this game since he was in Toronto. Super strong, gets downhill. He's aggressive. He doesn't, even if he misses 3 or 4, he doesn't waver in his confidence, which is big. Obviously he's had big nights for them over the course of the season. So I think he's an X factor for them. He's somebody that you can't just let walk into threes or transition threes or just kind of find a rhythm. That makes everybody on the team job a little bit easier. So we're going to treat him as one of the guys too, and I'm going to do my best to try to limit his touches and his attempts.
All right. Well, here's the deal. That is some of the most substantial feedback we've gotten from Jamal in some time. I do feel like he's pretty. He comes off very sassy.
You just have to catch him in. I say catch him in the right mood. It's his job as the second highest paid player on the team, the second best player on the team, to talk when.
And he doesn't like to.
Yeah, when you're asked to talk, and we'll probably see it happen at some point during the playoffs, where they have a bad loss. We've seen it the last 2 years, and he just doesn't talk, and it's crappy because
it's a little awkward, huh?
Yeah, because your job is to stand there, win or lose, in a team sport as one of the team leaders, and explain why things went well or why they didn't go well and what you're going to do better next time.
Right.
And he's ducked it in Phoenix a couple of years ago. He ducked it last year after those first 2 Minnesota losses here. But like I said, then there's other times where after a loss, he's amazing. He's extremely confounding to try to understand. And so he started that, and we didn't even give you the first 2 minutes, but it was a lot of short answers. And then he started to open up and gives you some really thoughtful answers. And so it's funny that you call the second best player the X factor, or that Kawhi Leonard is an X factor. I think it's how healthy is Kawhi Leonard? How productive is he? But to me, your X factor is always somebody you're not expecting to.
You know what's sad?
Awesome. I'm not saying that you're wrong in your line of thinking.
No,
it's just an odd
but you know
approach.
what's sad? To your point, and I'm gonna explain a little bit on like the X factor thing. To your point, Jamal Murray really shouldn't be considered an X factor. Nikola Jokic really shouldn't be considered an X factor because that's just the expectation, right? Like, that these are the guys. Kawhi hasn't been out most of the season, so he's an X factor in the sense that he's potentially giving this Clippers team more life than they otherwise would not have had without Kawhi Leonard. But when it comes to Jamal Murray, well, actually, no. When it comes to this Nuggets team as a whole in general, the X factor solely, in my opinion, the X factor solely depends on the consistency you get from those players. So when I talk about X factors for the Denver Nuggets, it really shouldn't be Jamal. It really shouldn't be Jokic. The expectation is that that's your best and your second best player on this team. And therefore, of course, you need them in the playoffs. But the X factor really for this Nuggets team is solely based on who shows up the most consistently. Because I know MPJ can bring it. I know CB can bring it. I know Jamal can bring it. I know Nikola Jokic brings it every night. I know you can get a 30-piece from Aaron Gordon where he's lighting it up from the three-point line, but will you is the question. It's the consistency aspect that makes this conversation an X factor conversation, because I think when all of these players, this starting five for this Nuggets team, when they're in full health and they're all playing their best basketball, there's very few teams out there that I believe can beat this Nuggets team when they are in full health, full strength, and playing their best. So the X factor conversation lies in who shows up and who is the most consistent throughout this series. That's your X factor, because Jokic will, he's going to be that guy. You don't know if you're going to get a 40-piece from Jamal or 20, or you don't know if Michael Porter Jr. is going to be rebounding like crazy and splashing from the three-point line, or if his threes aren't falling and he looks tired and sad on defense. You don't know that. So the X factor conversation really, when it comes to Denver specifically, is who shows up. That's your X factor. Who's consistent in game 1 through game 7. And I think that's where the X factor conversation is a little different than any other team, because when they all do show up, they're kind of a tough team to beat no matter who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's been their biggest issue all year, is that they've only played 25-ish games, give or take, between 25 and 30 games.
Right, so it's hard
with
to
their
know.
starters.
Yeah.
So that means, what is that? If you've got 82 games and you played less than 30 with your starters, that's about 35% of your games, give or take. Is that math right?
Yeah.
We know I'm not great at math, but
You're good at a lot of things. Math isn't one of them.
no, you can't develop a consistency though when every night. And I think there was a stretch where they had 13 different starting lineups, 13 straight games.
Yeah.
Which is
It was
crazy.
insane. And I truly, BK, I think when it comes to this Nuggets team in the playoffs, I think there's a lot of people that are underestimating Denver.
Well, ESPN,
for good reason.
ESPN, everybody but 2, like 11 of
Yep.
the 13
Yep.
experts picked them.
So I
the
think
Clippers.
there's a lot of sleeping on Denver, and I understand why. It's been a very streaky season. There's been a lot of inconsistencies. There's been a lot of ebbs and flows. But one thing
You fired your head coach?
Right, and I was just going to get into that. But I honestly, I think a lot of non-Nuggets fans, or maybe just people that see a coaching change like that so late in the season, and also general manager, that kind of feels like a where there's smoke, there's fire, right? You see something like that happen, you naturally assume when you fire your head coach and your general manager that late in the season that there's a bunch of bad things going on. So I think there's a lot of non-Nuggets fans, or just basketball people, that maybe don't have the inside scoop on what's going on in Denver, that view firing Coach Malone as a weakness. And I think this Nuggets team, and a lot of people close to this Nuggets team that are hearing things more and more, are actually viewing that as a strength. So I think a lot of other teams and fan bases are looking at that going, oh yeah, Denver, they're gone. First round, like firing your coach. They're a hot mess over there. There's clearly some stuff going on. Yeah, there were a lot of things going on, but I do think they eliminated the problem. Like, I think the problem is gone now, having eliminated that very disgruntled relationship between front office and coach. So while a lot of other people view that as a weakness, I actually think it's their strength, because now they're playing with maybe a touch of spite. There might be a little bit of spite sprinkled in there, but also they love the game again. I feel like when we were watching this Nuggets team all season, they just were losing their passion for this sport, and it was really tough to watch. Sorry, you could pop that back up there. Nuggets like to be underdogs, so that's just good. I agree. They love being underestimated, and I do think it fuels their fire. We saw this when they won in 2023. Nobody had faith in Denver except for Denver fans, and the media was not giving them the credit that they deserved. Nobody was talking about them. The entire media is picking the Clippers to win. Exactly. The entire media is also picking the Lakers to win. And the Timberwolves, to me, also strike me as a team that likes to play with that little bit of edge and that little bit of spite. And they use that as motivation. So, like I said, I think to the average basketball fan, firing your coach with 3 regular season games would warrant, and very, very rightfully so, warrant worry about what that team can do in the playoffs. But I actually view it the opposite way. I think had they kept Coach Malone, we probably would have seen a first round exit by Denver. And that's not knocking specifically Coach Malone, but that's just saying there was so much just tension that was happening behind closed doors that was creating or resulting in streaky, inconsistent, and bad basketball played by this team. So you remove the 2 people that are creating the tension, and I think what you're going to see is that this Nuggets team gives us that Denver Nuggets basketball that we're always wanting to see when we watch them play. When you've got the best player in the world, I'm talking the best player in the world on your team, I think that it's a fair assumption that it's tough to be a first round exit when you have Nikola Jokic on your team. That's difficult because when you've got Jokic out there, anything is possible, and that's truly how it feels. But then you get this healthy starting 5 that is very rarely played together, and you remove the back end tension that they were dealing with all season long. And I do think this Nuggets team is going to shock a lot of people. I think while the Clippers are very hot, arguably maybe the hottest team at the end of the regular season in the way that they were playing with Kawhi Leonard, we know it's going to be a series, in my opinion, that goes the distance. I like Nuggets in 6, BK. I know you said it's going 6 or 7 games, but are you Nuggets or are you Clippers?
I think I'm still going to go Nuggets, because I do think the right buttons have been pushed.
I agree.
Admittedly, though, this Clippers team is way different than the 5 games they played against him before. And
Oh,
so
of course.
that's got to scare you. But James Harden can still turn into James Harden and lose you a game to some degree. He doesn't do stuff that's as crazy as Russ at times, but he can certainly go off the reservation a little. And after Kawhi, as good as Zubats is, they don't really run stuff for Zubats. So
Right.
if you can keep him off the glass between AG and Joker, and while Zubats has scored a lot, and we know that Joker's post defense and the Nuggets post defense hadn't been great, they aren't running stuff for Zubats.
Right.
So if you're just in the way, he's not going to dominate you physically the way, and he doesn't have tremendous skill. He doesn't have the skill level Joker has, or some of the truly skilled big men of yesteryear. So I'm probably gonna pick the Nuggets, but I'm not gonna be surprised at all if they lose this.
I agree with that. You just made a comment that I now have to trace my thoughts back to. Oh my gosh, what did you say? You said something about the Nuggets. I lost my train of thought.
It happens.
I
do that
had
all
a
the time.
really good thing to fire off.
Well, here, do you want to think about it while we hear from
Yes, I
David
do.
Adelman today? Because I know that he talked for almost 12 minutes yesterday. He talked for like 10 minutes. It's Christian Brown's birthday, by the way, but I don't think he did
Happy
anything.
birthday!
I don't think he did anything for CB on his birthday. So I think we'll cue it up as quickly as we can here.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of towards the end. He was asked about Kawhi. He was just asked about the matchup. You'll hear kind of some of the stuff that we're going into here. But here's just a couple minutes from DA here post-practice.
It is, and it's also, I don't think it's possible to win what we want to win with him just going 1-on-3, 1-on-4. We are extremely confident in the other guys to make open shots. They have to shoot those shots, commit to them, and then that makes things easier for Nikola. I thought the Sacramento game was the greatest example of that. The numbers weren't what they were, but by the end they were, and that's what you want. You want the game to gradually come to him, let him read the game, and we can react from there. And that, honestly, on both ends, we have to do things the right way where he's not always coming up in pick and roll. Can we cross match him? Can we send somebody else up? Just assign someone else to go up with the pick and rolls. Things like that where it's not so many steps on both ends, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's part of your job to protect him. And then I think it's also part of his job to trust his teammates, which he's done an unbelievable job of. It's not just the assist numbers, it's the open shots created. And in the playoffs, you can live and die with wide open shots. You have to. That's the way this thing works. I brought this up before. Some of the greatest teams of all time, you're going to remember their star players, but I know watching my father lose to the Lakers, you can talk about Kobe and Shaq all you want. It was Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, and Robert Horry. Those guys made shots. That's why it loosened the game up for Kobe and Shaq. So you need that. You need that from your team, and I have great confidence in these guys that they can do it.
Is that a conversation, though, that you had with Nikola beginning and maybe even throughout, just saying, hey, I think this is best, taking the ball out a little bit of your hands?
Yeah, we talked about, just because he's so big on just shoot it, just shoot it, just shoot it. And I think the guys have to give him the feeling that I want it. Like, throw me the ball and shoot it confidently. But the other part of that is there's trends. And we're seeing more of this basically triple team wherever he is. And more teams are watching other teams that have done that, and they're trying to implement it. Now, do they have the roster to do it like we saw some of these other teams do? I don't know. We'll see when we get out there. But, yeah, it's one thing trust, it's one thing conversation, and a whole other thing, you have to react to what other teams do schematically.
Yeah, yesterday you talked about connectivity a little bit.
Yeah.
How much of that do you have to continue to drill home? Because it feels like they're talking more just over those 3 games, or re-emphasize, or you just rely on it to happen because it's so important there. Dialogue to the connectivity, at least on defense.
Yeah, and it's continued through these practices, and it's really important because you're going to be in really tough moments, and we can't call timeout and powwow every time something doesn't go our way. And today was really good. We had a scout team out there. We were a little sloppy, turned the ball over, which was a good thing for us because we're going into a tough game we haven't played in a while. And to see the guys talk, communicate, be okay with someone saying, you got to get to your spot quicker, we got to space better than that. And then on the defensive end, doing different things we may show in the series, it not going well all the time. And then guys really getting on each other about, got to be more attentive to what we're doing, be there earlier for me. That stuff is good because you can't, you don't want to go into these huge games where anxiety is so high and now you're having that conversation. You know, you have to get ahead of conversations like that. And if we can do that and be consistent with it, it obviously helps the process.
Starters are obviously going to play more, but how comfortable do you feel right now in terms of how far you can go into your bench? How much do you see that as kind of a game-by-game thing with certain minutes?
I think it's game by game. I also think what we found out over the years is how the schedule breaks down matters. And you're going to get that. Those first 2 games feels like a marathon, and then you do get the 2 days. And that does make you reassess. And obviously you're talking to the medical staff about where guys are at. It's not a time to be stupid. But the good thing is I see a lot of confidence with the players we have coming off our bench throughout this whole week. And now they have a little bit of experience underneath their belt. Obviously, Jalen does not. But Jalen got to play in some big games. And I mean this, the Sacramento game felt like a playoff game. And he seemed very comfortable in it. And his shot's been falling this week. And so you have to rely on those guys. And you guys all know this, how the playoffs are. It may only be for 4 minutes. It may be a 4-minute run. So give me everything you got for 4 minutes. Be as clean as you can be as confident as you can be. When you're open, shoot the ball, test yourself defensively, live on that side of aggression. And it's okay because fail or succeed, somebody else is coming back in. So give it everything you have with the minutes that you're going to get. And if we can do that, you know, I think that'll help us succeed.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I mean, just a great coach.
Well, he's been around it his whole life, just like Michael Malone, but his dad was, I mean, he was born in Portland, where his dad was a really good coach with the Blazers, took him to the NBA Finals with Clyde Drexler.
There we go.
And then, I'm not sure this is Nikola Jokic, but that would be awesome if it was.
Could you imagine?
That he's just checking in on our show. But Adelman feels like the perfect coach for us right now. And that's something that I think is a really good point when you start to dissect. Part of, I think, what made Josh Kroenke comfortable making this move was knowing the entire coaching staff and what Ryan Bowen's strengths are and what Popeye Jones's strengths are and what Ryan Saunders' strengths are. Another guy who obviously grew up in it with his dad, Flip coaching forever. Popeye played forever, now is coach forever. And we can go down the list. But when you've had success and you haven't lost a bunch of guys, they've lost some guys, obviously, over the years. Chris Finch has gone to be a head coach. Wes Unseld Jr., Mike Anora, you went with Chris Finch, Jordy Fernandez. Those are all good problems to have when you're losing guys to better jobs. But David Adelman's been here for 8 years, and he's really helped implement the offense to run through Nikola Jokic. And one of the things that he talked about today is that when new players get added, he's in charge of acclimating them to some degree. That's one of his responsibilities. So Josh knew that he wasn't just throwing, something against the wall, hoping it would stick.
He knows it works.
And he knew that he had the right guy,
right?
Because he's seen all these guys. A bunch of them have run summer league in different years, and so he knew that David Adelman did a great job with that. And as David talked about too today, he's done already about 70% of the job, because Michael Malone, like any good leader, has let guys do other things. He's let David Adelman run practice. He coached a game because Michael Malone stayed back to watch his daughter in the state volleyball playoffs. He's run practices. He runs pregame meetings. He runs the scout meeting. So
he's been immersed in it for years and years.
Right.
And years.
And he was obviously born into it.
Yep.
So Josh wasn't just hoping one of these guys would do okay as the interim. I think maybe more credit, and especially if they win a series or two, should be given to Josh for knowing that David Adelman was the right guy right now, and maybe going beyond that if he ends up keeping the job, because Michael Malone built up this foundation. They won a championship, and now Adelman's able to take him farther without having to really rock the boat too much, but just kind of use the stuff that works and tweak some of the stuff that didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I remembered what I was going to say after you were making your comments, because I do think this is a very common thought amongst like fans and people that are watching the playoffs and are trying to make their predictions and or place their bets and are trying to figure out what they like about this series and what they don't. I already mentioned having Nikola Jokic on your side gives you a really great shot right then and there, right? And then you get a healthy starting five with the supporting cast around Jokic. That also gives you a really great shot. What I've seen a lot of people argue in why they prefer the Clippers over the Nuggets in this series is the Clippers are a completely different team with Kawhi Leonard. That is very true. We're watching that unfold. And we know that this Nuggets team has not faced this Clippers team yet with Kawhi Leonard. So we already know that elevates the Clippers and also poses a different problem for the Nuggets that they didn't have to see this season. But I'm going to also challenge you to think about it in the same way with the Nuggets, where the last 3 games of the regular season looked like a completely different Nuggets team. So in the same way the Clippers look very different with Kawhi Leonard, I think the Nuggets also look very different without Coach Malone. And that is not me knocking what Coach Malone did in his time here, but I do think the tensions had gotten so bad that it really was suffocating for these guys and they couldn't properly do their job. So I just remind people to think about the fact that while it seems like a bad thing and a negative thing to fire your coach that late in the season, for this Nuggets team, I think it was good and I think it was necessary. And if you look at just the last 3 games where they had a coaching change and you got rid of that tension, it's a completely different Nuggets team we watched in those last 3 against Sacramento, Memphis, and Houston. Memphis and Houston are tough teams. Houston played their starters. This Nuggets team looked phenomenal against them. So I think Kawhi, the Clippers getting Kawhi makes them different and poses a different problem for the Nuggets, but also this Nuggets team being free from the tensions and no longer being suffocated by drama also makes them very different and elevates them a lot, and the Clippers should be prepared for that as well.
Well, how about this? The Clippers with Kawhi haven't played the Nuggets. They've beaten a lot of teams, but Kawhi hasn't played against the Nuggets at all this year. He's obviously played against them plenty.
Right.
So that
who's to say he doesn't get in front of Jokic and just freeze up?
he might get really nervous.
I would get nervous.
Nicola on the chat said, yes, guys, I'm Jokic, LMAO, which makes me think even more so it is him.
Because he would do that.
Well,
yeah.
and also he's like trying to throw us off like, yeah, of course, it's me, guys. Yeah, it's all right. So that's cool.
Okay, so
Makes
he's
sense.
tuning in. That's great.
We know
love
Russ
that.
catches your stuff, and
yeah,
now we got the Joker watching us.
That's fantastic.
It'd
No,
be the show
truly
of
though,
record.
I do think, the Nuggets they've got their hands full with Kawhi Leonard. Absolutely.
And James Harden and Norman Powell
right,
and Zubac.
But they've seen those guys. I'm saying they've got their hands full in a sense of like, this is new to you. This Clippers team with Kawhi is new. But also this Nuggets team playing the way they've been playing over their last 3 regular season games is also going to be new to the Clippers, because what we saw in those final regular season games by the Nuggets is exactly what we've been hoping to see all season. If the Nuggets can play the way that they played against Sacramento through 4 quarters, the Grizzlies, especially in that 4th quarter, and then Houston all throughout that game, I'm feeling pretty good about the Nuggets' shot against this Clippers team because, again, you got Jokic and you've got the supporting cast helping him out, being there, being available, being healthy. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Denver. And then you add the simple fact of the matter that this Nuggets team loves it when people doubt them. So to see all of the ESPN analysts who what they think it's not Bible, like I don't view their word as like the end all be all, but to see all these ESPN analysts not favoring Denver, I think that just motivates Denver. Let's really quickly, we've got to give a little shout out to our friends over at Accurate America, BK. We're in spring, we're approaching summer, okay? And in those months, you get a lot of weather.
Get some hail damage, faux show.
You get a lot of weather and hail damage, faux show.
I had to get a new roof a few summers ago. I wish I would have had Accurate America because
remember when we got a tornado early summer, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, it ripped through Highlands Ranch, not that far from where I'm on the southwest side of town.
It was right by my parents' house. Yeah. So weather is going to happen whether we like it or not, unfortunately.
No pun intended.
Correct. But one thing you can do is get ahead of it. And you can get ahead of it by taking advantage of Accurate America. They are seriously designed to just get you prepared for the inevitable, which is the weather, the damage. They will work with your insurance to get you some coverage, hopefully. But if you want to call before the storm, which is what they highly suggest, look to Accurate America, 303-900-ROOF. Like I said, they will partner on navigating with your insurance. They'll provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling, okay? Their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. And like I said, get ahead of it. Don't scramble at the last minute. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF before the storm. Accurate America, experts in roofing and exteriors. Wish BK knew this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, because we got like the next to best roof as a replacement roof. But I bet if we would have talked to the folks at Accurate America, we would have got like because I think it's graded like 3, 4, or whatever. 4 is the highest. Ours, I think, is a 3, and it should have been a 4. But I think the contractor didn't do a great job. Was part of it. Cut some corners, maybe. So
I'm definitely going to take advantage of it because I'm a new homeowner.
Yeah.
And
You should just get a new roof now, even ahead of time. Don't even worry about insurance. Just go buy one.
oh, perfect.
Acura
Yeah.
America will give you a great deal, I'm sure. It's one option. But you got to
Yeah, no,
check 'em
I
out.
will be reaching out because you can never be too prepared in Colorado for what the weather may bring. Okay, BK, before we get out of here, anything you want to touch on before we wrap?
Well, as we just look ahead to the weekend, we now have the play-in
Yep,
finals on
We
the
do.
horizon tomorrow.
we do.
And we saw the Mavericks run the Kings out of the gym and the Heat run Chicago out of the gym. Both
Warriors
road teams-
Grizzlies was a really great matchup.
That was a fun game. Both road games on the Wednesday night for the 8, 9, 10 games of both road teams. The Mavs like Luka who, Kyrie who, it didn't matter last night. They were a buzzsaw. Maybe Nico Harrison with his ridiculousness. Did you see that? The closed door local media conversation that he had, and he just kept saying, well, defense wins championships. Defense wins championships.
We were going after Anthony. We knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
To
Anyway.
me, it feels like very much
And I don't know they could lose in Memphis tomorrow, so defense may not win them a championship this year.
Lakers
I
could
wouldn't
lose
think
in the
that.
first round.
They could. But those were kind of blowouts. So now I think we should see the Hawks. I didn't realize have been in the play-in games 4 years in a row. So you got Hawks hosting the Heat. I like the Heat in that one.
I do
So
too.
then-
Tyler Hero couldn't be stopped.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Heat. I don't think they beat the Cavs, but I think they'll give them a series. I think it could, be a 6-game series.
I think the Heat are always a team in the playoffs that you can't.
No, a
and
lot
of
of that
course,
was Jimmy Butler.
without Jimmy Butler does make a difference. But I do think, what I saw last night was Tyler Hero saying, "We don't need him. We're good.
Yeah.
I'm fine." He
He's gonna
was
score
lights
38 a
out.
game.
Yeah.
So I think the Heat win. I guess we could both be wrong, but do you agree with me that the Heat are going to go to Atlanta and win tomorrow?
I would assume so. Yes.
And then you get Dallas.
Can we get Trae Young out of Atlanta?
I'm sure he wouldn't mind if the right opportunity presents. He can go to Phoenix.
Also, the Bulls game. I don't watch the Bulls consistently because why would I?
Michael Jordan doesn't play for him anymore.
It's correct.
Or
It's
Derrick
really, really tough to be a guy like Kobe White last night, who is normally your guy. He is your scorer. You want the ball in his hands as much as possible. But when he gets locked down like that, he just looks like a ball hog because he was not making a thing. I kept saying, like, Kobe, please just pass the ball. And otherwise, normally you would not be thinking that about Kobe White. You're like, get the ball in his hands, but that defense made him a priority, and you could tell he was pretty rattled. He was not making his shots. So he ultimately just looked like a ball hog. Grizzlies, Warriors. That was a really fun matchup. I really, really enjoyed that. I don't know, you guys. I think Houston could be out in the first round, BK.
I think so too.
The Warriors are good, man.
They are. Just the health is an even bigger concern there because Jimmy Butler's already playing hurt.
Yeah.
Steph
Yeah,
looked
that's
like
fair.
he got a little linked up. Now, at the same time, and this is something David Adelman talked about, how big it was to avoid the play-in.
Mhm.
He's like, we needed this time to heal up. He goes, look at what happened. He goes, Ja rolls his ankle. So now he's got to play through that. He's like, Jimmy's already playing hurt, and Steph gets a little nicked up.
Mhm.
So you just don't know what can happen by adding extra games. Of course, injuries can happen in practice. That happens all the time.
Yep.
Even if you're trying to dial it back, fluky things can happen. You can get hurt walking up or down the stairs. But by playing a game that matters, a cutthroat game, there's always going to be the opportunity for another injury. And that's what happened. So now you're going to get Dallas, who destroyed the Kings, coming to Memphis. And we don't know how healthy Ja is, because you can finish a game. As silly as that sounds, you roll your ankle between adrenaline and tape and this and that. And if they do give you a shot, you can usually get through, again, depending on the severity of it.
Right.
But getting through that game, no matter what the sport, is sometimes easier than whenever the next game is, especially if it's only 3 days later. In football, you've got a week typically. But, the soreness sets in, the swelling sets in,
Mhm.
that isn't there right away. So what will Ja even be able to do tomorrow night against Dallas? And regardless, Dallas or Memphis, feels like Memphis, in theory, could give OKC a better series.
I agree with that.
But I don't know if they even win tomorrow night if Dallas plays where they did last night. I don't think Dallas beats OKC. They just don't have enough. The series that's going to be interesting that I want to see right off the bat is Knicks and Pistons in the East.
I think there's a world where Piston could upset.
And Bucks Pacers too, especially because of the miraculous healing of Shelby's favorite point guard, Shelby Harris's favorite point guard, Dame Lillard. Blood clots. He may only miss one game. He's going to miss 3 weeks for all the playoffs. He's going to miss one game. Whoever his doctor is, that's who you need to go see. assuming he's board
Give them
certified.
a call.
He or she
Yeah.
is board certified.
No, seriously. It's I've been liking the Bucks over the Pacers, but you throw Dame back in that mix, and I like it even more.
Okay. So take the Nuggets and Clippers off. And by the way, Saturday day game is odd. It's a very busy sports Saturday around here. You've got the spring game with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders getting their jerseys retired. That's 2:30 in Boulder, as Coach Prime reminded us today. Still tickets available. You've got a 1:10 first pitch, a kind of a random Saturday day game. You always get the Sunday day games around here, but very rarely do you get Saturday. And the weather's supposed to come Friday night and then just kind of be crappy Saturday, but not rain and snowy too much.
You see,
so
accurate America. Give them a call.
But they might play the game is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have a baseball game going on, a basketball game going on half a mile away, a spring game going on. And then, of course, we've got you covered with Jesse and Megan and Mark headed down to Dallas.
Yep.
6:30 puck drop there.
Oh, my Lord.
It's a big day to watch a lot of local sports. It's obviously impossible to be at the basketball game, spring game, and baseball game all at the same time. I don't even know
if we could, we would.
I don't even know how you could split those up. I guess you go to the first half of the basketball game.
You'd have to
catch
divvy it up.
3 innings of baseball on your way to the spring game. But yeah, you're gonna have to pick and choose. Nonetheless, it's gonna be busy around
and we'll have you covered
here. So, but again, let's take the Nuggets off.
Okay.
Nuggets, Clippers. Of those other 7 series, which one are you looking forward to just over the weekend? Keep an eye, because I think if the Pistons can be healthy, and that's a big if, that one feels like I could go 6 or 7 too, and it feels like
I'm most excited for Lakers Wolves.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I think that one is going to go the distance, and I don't. I mean, yes, I know LeBron and Luka. I know, I get it, but
that's
Timberwolves are still terrifying. I don't know why we're like brushing over the Wolves.
Be your Nuggets PTSD of Timberwolves. I'm not saying that they won't match up well.
No, because, well, okay. I mean, yeah, maybe that is part of it. That I've watched this. The Nuggets have dominated the Lakers for quite a bit of seasons, and the Timberwolves have dominated the Nuggets. So just in my brain, it's like
like law of transitive properties,
right? Sure. Like process of elimination here. I think the Timberwolves are just scarier to the Lakers than the Lakers maybe want to believe.
Maybe. I just know that
it's going to be a great series.
We got one of the where are we ranking Luka in terms of a healthy Luka right now in shape? If we're putting Joker 1, we're going to put SGA 2.
Yes.
Okay. All NBA team doesn't matter for this. Just
I would
Giannis is Giannis 3 right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Luka would probably be top 5.
Okay, so Luka's top 5.
Yeah.
And a 40-year-old LeBron is still in the top 10. I'm taking him over almost everybody else in the playoffs.
I would agree.
Taking him over, I mean, Steph, obviously.
Anthony Edwards would be up there for me.
Yeah, but let's just look at that. So let's say Luka and all the other Timberwolves cancel each other out. Julius Randle and company. LeBron and Anthony Edwards, if those are the two, again, we're making stars X factors, but what's going to tip the scale? It feels pretty darn even, but I can't pick Anthony Edwards ahead of with what LeBron's done, especially in the last 6 weeks or whatever.
I know
his numbers in the last 6 weeks are crazy.
But I think that's why I'm the most excited for this series.
Yeah,
because you make an argument for LeBron. There's another one on the other side for Anthony Edwards. You make an argument for Luka, and then you've got there's players that come out of the woodworks all the time on the Wolves, all the time. When I think if you contain Anthony Edwards, you're good. Nope.
Well, and look, let's not sleep on Mike Conley. Mike Conley will make 38% of his threes. He always puts the ball in the right place. And also, Rudy Gobert, he can deal with whatever else is going to be at the rim.
Right.
Luka,
oh, God, I hate Rudy
everywhere.
Gobert. He's so annoying.
I understand.
I have a list of players that I've started to make that are good and they deserve no trolling or hate. They just annoy me. Do you want to hear some of them?
Yeah, my lists like that are all related to people that cost me bets, like Russell Henley in golf.
Okay, that's fair. I used to have a no bet list, but yeah. I just have a list of players that just irk me for no reason. There's really no reason. Rudy Gobert's on there.
I'm pulling out my list of players I hate.
Okay.
Okay,
Rudy Gobert's on there for me. Duncan Robinson annoys me. I can't put my finger on it. Caruso annoys me. And it's probably just because he's good and he's not on my team. I'm trying to think of other players that just get under my skin. There was a couple more that I had, but I can't remember. I think I Oh, Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum annoys me.
Yeah.
And I know he's good. I know he's good. Most of the players I'm going to name that annoy me are good. But yeah, just like off the top of my head, Rudy Gobert, Duncan Robinson, Caruso, Jason Tatum.
I used to have a lot more, a much longer list, certainly unrelated to gambling, of players like that just annoyed me when I was,
Yeah.
I feel like when my fanship was more robust as just when I was younger, when I was a kid, and it affected by moods more. Right now, the only thing that can affect me is sometimes Fulham soccer and Kansas basketball. Some years, not this year because we were terrible, even though we were preseason number 1. But like that will ruin my weekend, ruin my day, ruin my month of March. So it's just related to gambling. So I have a list of 6 golfers, and I realized 2 of them were on our Masters bets that my buddy Tim and I make.
Yeah.
But Russell Henley is at the top of the list, and all these guys are eligible for probation except for a guy named Andrew Putnam, who's ineligible for probation. I wrote because he screwed us so bad. Our auxiliary list: Kyle Pitts and Anthony Davis, because I think Anthony Davis cost us enough like same game parlay bets. And then Bruce Brown was on probation because he just needed to make one more 3 a couple years ago in the championship run, and took 4 threes in the final, down the stretch.
I had Will Barton
missed
on
all of them.
on
Will
my
Will Barton would stay on
probation
the
list for a minute.
Yeah, Will Barton would, I think, just stay on the list. Will Barton scratched out an amazing NBA career for a guy that I thought he looked exactly like the guy that you would see show up to the rec center in like his work clothes, like khakis and like a Best Buy polo and busted sneakers, and then destroy everyone. Like with his belt kind of like, how people like tie their belt next to the belt kind of flop, like that look.
Yeah.
Like he'd be that guy with his polo shirt
It's true.
untucked, and the rest of us are on basketball gear, and he'd be destroying people. But then the dude made, $70 million in the NBA.
Yeah.
But God, he took some crazy shots.
He was like on probation for me from a betting perspective. Like I had been burned a few too many times by him, and I do think it's very normal to have a no bet list. But yeah, I don't mind. I don't really have a no bet list these days. It's just a, like they annoy me for no reason list. And right now, the top 2 contenders are Jason Tatum and Rudy Gobert.
What about
but
football players?
Honorable mention: Duncan Robinson and Caruso.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know. They just annoy me. But football players, I don't really think I have many. Like they just annoy me for no reason.
Quarterbacks or pass rushers.
No, I don't really think I have any of those. No. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, Nick Bosa probably annoys me a little bit, but yeah, no, I don't really have many in football. But I think there's a weird feeling like with the NBA where you just feel like you're a little more connected to these players because you can see them, and it's such a star-driven and like while it's a team sport.
Annoys me because of how silly he is with his off-court stuff.
I'm so over. Like, I get it that now he's just trolling people, but it's like the gun and shotgun willies was bad enough, okay? And my whole issue with that is like, whatever, have a gun. That no one's saying that you shouldn't own a gun. You brought a gun on a team plane. That's where I'm like, whoa, dude. And then he's like trolling people even more. He's tripling down on it by like shooting as a celebration and throwing grenades. And it's just like, ay. Like
he could be the face of the league. He's got his own sneaker, right? He's got his own Jordan brand sneaker, which is kind of the most exclusive thing to get. He's as physically talented, although he's been banged up obviously the last couple of years, as we've seen. And he could be in a world where the entire league is almost full of international superstars. All the guys that we listed, the 4 guys we listed off the top were Joker,
Giannis,
Luka. SGA's from Canada.
Yeah.
And Luka. Those are 4 guys that were not born in America.
Yep.
And then Wemby is going to be on that list. So yeah, the first guy you get to that is Anthony Edwards right now. I think that's American born, or Tatum. But there's something about Tatum that there's like a missing superstar thing. He's like personality wise,
he's a try hard. He's a try. There's something, and again, this is. It feels
mean. Like he's never going to be MVP.
I cannot put my finger on it, but there is just something with him, and you're absolutely right. It's like when we talk about quarterbacks in the NFL that just have that quarterback swagger. Jason Tatum just is missing a level of swag to me, and when he tries to have it, it's just like, what was that? Like, I don't know. He just annoys me, and I have no reason for it. Like, this is just going to make me sound like such a hater, but maybe it is the complaining to the refs, and like he's really tapped into that stuff now, so that does bug
Tim
me.
Duncan
but
style.
Yeah, so I don't know. But
Ja could easily be the American face of the league, if you will.
Well, let me ask you this,
and he's just not.
Because I have said a couple of times on this show actually that Anthony Edwards is kind of what who Anthony Edwards is becoming is what I pictured for Ja. But I
Yeah,
think he
it's
got
funny
into
'cause
those.
Anthony doesn't want it. He's
He
like, "I don't
got
wanna
into
be this
that
guy."
off-court nonsense and just kind of started to fall off a little bit. I will ask you this, and then we'll get out of here. Let's say Ja stays with Memphis forever. They are constantly a first or second round exit. They don't win a ring. Does that feel like wasted potential there with Ja?
100%.
Yeah. I'm already
Yeah.
starting to like if they don't start really turning things around and he starts figuring it out, I'm already feeling that way. And it's such a bummer because he really was the it factor for a while. And of course, some of it's injuries, but like the off court stuff really to me like set him back a
Yeah, it's like
long
and
way.
it doesn't feel like it's sinking in.
Mm-mm.
The NBA put out top 10 plays of the regular season, and the only 2 players that were in there more than once, if I'm not mistaken, were Joker with a 3/4 court shot from kind of the free throw line and then the one from the side. But then it plays, I think, 1 and 3, and 2 of them, and number 1 was 2 different plays in the same game with like crazy spinning reverse layups or reverse dunk. And that's what I'm saying is that Ja's that dynamic.
Yeah.
And he can't get out of his own way. Now watch them if they win tomorrow night and beat Dallas at
Yeah.
home and give
Upset
OKC a
OKC.
series, and he doesn't do anything stupid and stops with the dumb celebrations, then maybe his trajectory changes, not just this. Like he should have been on the Olympic team, but he's nowhere
He's
near
so
it
good.
for understandable reasons.
Yeah, he's so good. But I do think he's forgetting, he's not understanding that part of being the face of the NBA is the responsibility of being the face of the NBA. It's not just because you're a good basketball player. It's involvement in the community and likableness and all that. And he's missing those
Common
things.
sense. Look, I know we're getting out of here, but one more thing, and this happened today. Mike Johnson was on Altitude Radio.
Yeah.
And he told a story about Michael Porter Jr. reaching out to him. I heard this. I was driving up to Boulder, wanting to get more involved in the community. That's interesting that you would reach directly out to the mayor, not just the community relations department of the team, but MPJ does things differently. We know that. And then he was asked about it and just talked about why that was important to him. But what do you think that says about MPJ? And mind you, he's 6 or 7 years into being here, but that he reaches out to the mayor because he wants to be more involved in the community. And maybe part of it too is if you talk to the team kind of has their initiatives. Not that they can't talk to the mayor, and the mayor.
Do you think Coach Malone had something to do with him not wanting to do that before?
No, not at all. I think it's more just the way certain teams go about things.
I wonder why now.
Yeah, look, but trying to figure out why MPJ does anything. Admittedly, I'm saying it's hard to figure out. He has
Confusing.
got his podcast, but then he doesn't do it all the time, and
Yeah.
it is interesting when he does it. But that he would have the wherewithal to just reach out to the mayor and ask the mayor, how can he help more? But what makes that interesting is teams, I don't say they have agendas, but they kind of just have their checklists.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to help this. We need to help these schools. We need to help these youth programs. We need to help whatever. And maybe it was like, hey, what's the biggest problem in the city? Like he's thinking of it like that. How can I, as one of the, most highly paid athletes in the history of the city, how can I help? Is it the homeless population? Because the Nuggets might not direct him in that, into that lane. I'm not saying that they're avoiding it, but they might just have their cronky charities that same with the Broncos, unless you have a player like Von Miller who has Von's vision, or PS2 who wants to help these high schools get these steam rooms, whatever so if Mike didn't have anything you really wanted to do specifically, in the last few springs, he's been dealing with personal life issues related to his brothers. So he finally doesn't have that on his, on his radar, thankfully, and it's unfortunate what's going on with them. But
I love MPJ.
I just think it's cool that he did that. What do you think about him reaching out to the mayor directly?
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think that's one way to do it. That's probably the most direct way to ask how you can get involved in the community is contacting the mayor. But I love MPJ, and I've always been keen on him staying here, but that's under the assumption that we're getting the most out of him that we possibly can. And I think we're definitely starting to see that with the coaching change. So hopefully that continues. But I'm a big fan of MPJ, and I do acknowledge that he's been through a lot in his personal life.
It's good that you acknowledge that.
Yeah, I do acknowledge it. And I'm giving him, I try to give every athlete like grace because they are humans outside of their sport. But yeah, I'm a big fan of MPJ's, and I was never like gung-ho right away on trading him. And then you started to see some of the inconsistencies and the streakiness, but we're learning that there was a lot of stuff on the back end that was probably contributing to that. So nonetheless, we do have Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, tip-off for this I almost said Lakers, Nuggets Clippers series. It is LA, but it's not the Lakers. And I will have you covered on a post-game show following that game.
Not just you.
Not just me. I will be joined by some special guests. I'm not going to say who yet because I want to make sure that they're here and we're sat in the
Michael
seat.
Jordan.
Yes, Michael Jordan will be here.
Maybe.
And I'll be tossing to BK. BK will be chatting with him that day as
That
well.
you can guarantee.
And yeah, so go Nuggets. We're excited. We will keep you up to date on all things NBA playoffs, as well as just the Nuggets journey through the playoffs. We'll have coverage for you full time.
Stay locked in our social channels too, because they've got shoot around tomorrow practice that will almost certainly be on the court. There's a big concert tonight that they were actually setting up for.
Yeah.
And so that's why they haven't practiced on the court, even though the Avs have been obviously getting ready for a road game. So it wasn't like the ice needed to be out. It's funny because you say the ice is down, like the ice is always down, but the stuff above it is off. But do the Clippers fly to town early and practice here to get used to being at altitude? Plus, it's a day game. I'm not saying they will, or at elevation, technically. But so we may have some good Clippers stuff tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
Tyronn Lue, potentially Kawhi, although he never says anything. James Harden, though, always entertaining. Maybe Zubats. Maybe we can talk to superstar Norman Powell.
Yeah. Love it. Superstar. He is a superstar when he plays Denver. He's a superstar always, but especially against Denver.
He's a Nugget superstar. I think otherwise he's just a good player.
Yeah. So we'll keep you updated. Make sure you're following us on all things social media, as well as subscribe to our YouTube. This has been another Gorilla Sports Off Court. I'm Liv Moods. That's BK, presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money. And yeah, we'll catch you guys Saturday after the big game. See ya.